Hey everyone, welcome to a special Absolute Comics. I do too many shows and don't know what the names of them are. My name's Benny. I run the channel Comic Story. That is Sal from Comic Pop, and we are talking with Joshua Williamson of many comic books fame.
Yes,
it's always a problem to introduce like individuals like yourself that your name is on so many books. Because it's like, hey, we're going to open up his wiki and just start reading.
Yeah. I've definitely done a lot of stuff, and I do have a lot of stuff coming. As we were talking about, was that like last time I talked to you, Sal, like, yeah, we hadn't announced Robin yet, we hadn't announced Gotham yet, and then I have 3 other books. Is that right? Yeah, 3 other books that haven't been announced yet, and then I have other creator-owned stuff I'm working on too. But
yeah, you still got your stuff because I don't think you've ended any of it, right? Birthright is over, isn't that one?
No, so Nailbiter is over. So Nailbiter Returns is over, but
that's the one that's over.
Yeah, okay. Is over. Birthright ends, I think, in June. Like issue 50 will be the end of it. Every issue now is like an epilogue because we kind of had our climax. Like our climax.
That's
was,
like,
what
I thought. Okay.
Yeah, we did a big war between 40 and 45. And then we started jumping into this thing where now the whole last trade is called epilogues because it's just us wrapping up all these plot points from across the 50 issues.
Well, at least you actually are. A lot of books that I read are indies. Yeah,
I know.
A lot of the books I read that are in the indies sector is just kind of like, the story's over. Assume what happened.
Right. No, I wanted to, because I don't want to go back to it. There was something that was funny. The other day, Chris Arendt at Newsarama, he posted this question, and I've been thinking about it a lot because he posted this question of like, is there any book that you would like to go back to? Is there any book that you would like to, like, if you could revisit? And I've been thinking about it, I'm like, I don't think there is, because I always try to give everything an ending.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I don't want to go back to something that was like a 3-issue thing or something like that from like 10, years ago. And I was like, no, Ghost had an ending, like maybe someday, but like that isn't like the one of going back to.
Right.
It had an ending. Like I had a plan, and then it ended. And it's the same thing with Nailbiter now, or with Nailbiter, I already went back to it. And I think we have plans eventually. We have plans to go back and do like more of it, but it was like the one that got away. Because a lot of people were talking about that. I saw people going in and being like, oh, I wish I could write more of this character because it's too short. But I think like a year ago, if somebody asked me that, I probably would have said Robin. I would have said I wanted to write more Damian. A year ago, somebody came to me and said that. But now I'm like doing that, so that's like off the table.
Yeah. I'm glad that someone is writing Damian. Like everyone forgets Damian exists. As a fan of the Bat family, there's always the ongoing joke of like, and there's Damian.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I know that Scott was not. I don't remember Scott's. I don't remember Scott's, but I know Damian wasn't a priority for Scott.
Right. Well, he made Duke. It was pretty obvious that Damian wasn't a priority for Scott.
No. Well, both Scott and James are really good about making new characters. Like they're always about making new characters introduced to the Bat family and the Bat, the mythos of Batman. I always wanted to write him. I wrote him. I got this job. This is like kind of Damian is connected to like me breaking into comics in a weird way, because it's like you go back years and years and years ago, again like 10 years ago. I had done some little bit of work at Marvel, a little bit of work at DC, and I was doing like little shorts and stuff. I was always doing these like little. I did a 6-pager one time for them. Like they had 6 pages available in anthology, and they're like, "Do you want to do one?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll do it, whatever." Like, especially at the time, because I was just like, "Give me the money." Like, I want the money. Like, I can definitely be like a greedy motherfucker sometimes. So I was like, sure, I'll do 6 pages, sure, whatever. I'll for a Halloween thing, sure, I'll do that. Like, I'll write a horror thing real quick.
Yeah.
Starting Superman, great, let's do it. And so I was always trying to do. So I was getting in on doing minis and things like that. And then this one guy who was an editor at the time, they also kind of would work in like new talent relations and things like that. He came to me at a con, and he's like, "Here's the deal. We're going to test you out on a full issue, but it's called an inventory story. We don't know when it's ever going to come out, but we're going to test it out. What do you want to do?" And he said, "Here's the deal. You have to write either a Superman script or a Batman script, but do not say Batman, because everybody says Batman." That was his advice. And I was like, so I was like, all right, how about this? How about I do a Batman Superman team up issue? Because, I love those characters together. That book is cool. It was, I like that book a bunch. And I think one of the best parts of DC is the relationship between the characters. So I want to show that I can write that. And I literally said to him, I was like, I want to write the Justice League. Like that is one of my big goals at DC, is I really want to do a big Justice League run. And so if I can't write Batman and Superman together, what the am I doing here?
Right.
Like that was literally my pitch to him, and he was like, no one has ever said that before. Okay, yes, you can do a Batman Superman script. So that kind of got me into the Batman Superman office at the time, and so I was able to do a couple little inventory things and little shorts. You know, I think I did like 3 of them that never saw the light of day, but it got me kind of in that office. Like none of this stuff was ever drawn or ever came out. It was just scripts that I did and I got paid for. It was great.
Yeah.
Especially that time when you're really just trying to break in, and you're like broke all the time.
Right.
So I was like, sure, let's do this. But then one of them I pitched was this thing. It was like a horror story, and I turned it in, whatever. And then I got a call from one of the editors, and he was like, I like it. Can we change it, though? Can we change your idea? Instead of it being Batman and Superman, can we make it Supergirl and Robin and Damian?
Yes.
We just tweak it around. I'm like, well, that's like a total rewrite. And they were like, well, we will pay you to write it over. And I was like,
well, I don't hear any complaints. I pictured them in the office just looking at your Batman Superman script and just being like, but what if it was just someone shorter and his female cousin? Like,
I mean, we changed it so drastically. That's why they paid me for it again. So it was pretty great. So I mean, we're talking about like a complete overhaul, right? Like it wasn't like a couple lines of dialogue. It was like a complete overhaul. And so I went in and I, completely changed it around. I made us from Damian, and it was really, really fun. I was really proud of it, and it came out, and I feel like I had Damian's voice, and I heard it in my head, and I always liked his character, and so ever since then, I have like a soft spot for him, and I've tried, to write him, and I always paid attention to whatever he was doing, and last year, I feel like it was March or April. I think it was April. It came up. I was talking to a group editor, and we started talking about it, and like he knew I loved Damian and Robin, and so he was like, are you interested in doing this? And I was still really uncertain about what I wanted to do with DC. Like I wasn't really sure where I wanted to land at DC, and I didn't want to just do like the expected thing. I think that's one thing. It's even funny, like I see people try to guess what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh man, they have no idea. It's all like, I have not seen an accurate guess yet on any of the stuff I'm doing. Like people get close, but they don't know. Or it's gonna be like, I promise you, there's some books I'm doing that are gonna have weird twists where they're like close to what it is, but not that. And so I was like, and I had this conversation with Marie in September after I finished Flash, because my priority was finishing Flash. Like that was really finishing Flash and then doing the death metal stuff. Because there was a part of me who was considering leaving when Flash was over. There was a part of me that was like, maybe I'd go do for a while, and so that was definitely on my mind of like, would I just walk from DC completely after Flash and just go do something different, like go completely other, do other comics. Right. And so, we had a lot of conversations, but Robin was one I really wanted to do. And so I don't remember when I pitched it. I think it was like July or August. I was like, here's what I actually want to do with it. And then I got moving pretty quick after that. Then it became like, let's get going. And then it was like, I had been sending them stuff. I started talking to Gleb 2 years ago, just about stuff in general. But I actually saw he was doing all these like little fan art stuff of Robin and the Bat family, and he really liked DC stuff. And so he and I messaged each other a couple times. And when the Robin thing came up, I was like, well, this guy, I know he hasn't done a lot for you guys, but this dude is my like number one pick. Is this guy right here? Like, if we can get him, that would be great, because I think he'd bring the right kind of energy, even though he is like a brand new person.
Yeah. And
they went with it because he did a couple things. They also knew of him and liked him, and so they were able to start getting him to do stuff. And then it was like, oh no, this guy's the exact right kind of energy this book needs, and do something different. Because I also didn't want the book to just be like a copy of everything that had already come before, like a Frank Quitely Grant Light. I didn't want it to just look like that or be that kind of book. I definitely want to use a lot of the mythology that's been built there, but I wanted to have a different feel. And Gleb and I talk a lot about it. We kind of are going more for like a more of a cliffhanger. Do you guys remember Cliffhanger? Like we really wanted to feel
the
more
movie?
like Cliffhanger. No, the comics.
Okay, I don't remember the comics. You say Cliffhanger, I'm thinking Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
I'm like, so Damian's gonna be climbing. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of that, a lot of climbing rocks. No, it's funny. We were.
It's Joe Mad and everything, right?
Yeah, it's Joe Mad. Yeah, so it's Joe Mad, Roberto Ramos, Chris Michello, and J. Scott Campbell.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so it was Danger Girls. or Danger
I
Girl.
remember Danger Girl. Yeah.
Danger Girl. Yeah, me and Gleb got in this whole conversation about McFarlane toys on Saturday. Because McFarlane was doing toys for some of it. We can go on a whole path of cliffhanger. But so in the '90s, there was a spin-off of Wildstorm with Image called Cliffhanger, and it was right before Wildstorm merged in with DC. So all those books they got merged in with DC for a minute there too. But yeah, Battle Chasers and
I remember Battle Chasers.
Yeah, so we were talking about that a lot, and we talk about that kind of style, even with the lettering. Like I went in and I was looking at Richard Starking's lettered Battle Chasers, and so I took a bunch of screen grabs and samples of that and sent it over to the letterer to be like, I mean, like this, like I want to feel like this. And so Gleb and I got in these whole conversation. He's a really big, I think he's more of a fan of. I know he's a really big Joe Mad fan, but I think he really likes Roberto Ramos at that time period. Was doing this book called Crimson.
Yeah.
It was also a Cliffhanger book. It's been collected by Boom. But you can see, like, if you go and look at that book, it was about a kid who's like Damien's age getting turned into a vampire and in high school. If you look at that art back then and see the way he's drawing Damien, you're gonna like totally see like he was in
okay.
You'll see. But yeah, he and I we just get along really well, and so it worked out with this book. I don't know, it was one of those things where things were just like working on it, you could tell. And then I wrote 2 preludes for it that are going to be in Batman Detective, and then I wrote issue 1, and it's been like, it's easily the most fun I've ever had at DC. Working on a book has been this Robin book. Some other books get really hard and complicated. Like there's one of the books I'm working on. I wrote the issue 1 this week. I had to write 2 issue 1s in the last 2 weeks, and I haven't finished both of them. The one that I was working on last week, it's like 75% there. I haven't given it to the editor yet. I have to talk a couple things out with him because it's a bigger thing. And there's another book I'm working on that's leading into other stuff. It's like everything I'm working on is leading to something else.
Right.
There's another book I'm working on that hasn't been announced yet, and I was writing the number 1 last week and a little bit this week, and I turned it in on Tuesday. But it was like the moment I turned it in, I think it might have been Monday night actually. Yeah, it was Monday. So Monday I turned it in, but the moment it went in, the moment I walked away from my computer, I was like, oh man, I want to rewrite so much of that. Like I could feel it. I knew what parts weren't working, and I was like, oh, man, it's not there. And then I sent it into the editor. I got on the phone with some friends and just kind of like talked out some stuff with them, and like Dennis Culver, the guy who's co-writing Gotham with me. He and I got on the phone and we were talking about like character motivations, just ideas of it. But I felt like it was missing something, like it wasn't clicking. So then I got on the phone with Ben Abernathy, who's the group editor, but he's also the editor of this particular book. And he had been feeling some similar things that I was feeling about the second half of it. I was like, yeah, I had to rewrite it. So then I spent the last couple of days like rewriting it. And that's why it's so crazy. Like Robin is like easy. Like it's fun.
You got it.
Every issue I'm like, oh, I know this. Like it just flows. And I actually plotted out all the way up to issue 8. And then I know what happens after issue 8.
Nice.
Like I know the last page of every issue. I know like the covers for every issue. Like I know what I want on the covers. I know how they all open, how they all end, and
That's awesome.
It's very much like this, and it breathes different too with Robin, because it's like with Flash was a double ship book. So it was like every 2 weeks I had to write a Flash comic book, and every 2 weeks it was like having to keep this thing going. And I have a tendency to overplot, so that it was like Flash kind of worked. So I was like, okay, I had to this happened really early on with Double Ship, because we were all doing Double Ship at the beginning, and everybody was like, oh man, it's so much work, and I was like, here's what you got to do. You have to look at each issue as like each month is one issue. You got to look at it as like you're writing a 40-page comic every month. If you look at it like that and you plot it like that, I think it'll be easier to do, and that's kind of what helped me with writing it. Eventually I kind of lost track of that because I was writing stuff for different artists.
Right.
Like with Flash, I would be writing the stuff for Howard like a year in advance, almost way earlier. So every time Howard would do an arc, he would always do an arc at the end of each year, pretty much.
Right.
A little bit of Running Scared and the Button. And then he did, at the end of year 2, he did Flash War. At the end of year 3, he did year 1. At the end of year 4, he was doing the Finish Line stuff. He had the last couple issues of Finish Line and a couple things in there. So I was always writing like for Howard, because of making sure Howard is so detailed, for Howard Porter is so detailed, that I have to write super ahead for him. So I always knew what each year was going to end like.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant I was always writing like the end of a year story before I wrote the stuff in the middle. Like it was always so.
So you had to like outline your way there. So you're like, okay, wait,
Yeah.
what? How do I connect all this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was when we were in the middle. I think like Flash. I think it was like once I was really writing Flash War, we had a conversation. I was in the office with the editors, and we just outlined out to 100. Like we knew at that point, like here's what we're doing here. You know, here's what we're doing here. We had kind of planned it all out. But even then, it was rough. So I was always writing stuff kind of like out of order. So the pacing, I think, it's weird in places because of that. But yeah, with Robin, it's really fluid and it's fun and it's monthly. So not to write it as fast.
So you're not like going crazy on it. I got a few questions about the whole Robin because I'm a huge Damian fan. I have been since
me
forever.
too. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
So I have followed his, I guess, character development, and then I feel like whenever someone takes over, they want to reboot him.
Yeah.
So like, oh, he's a little shit again who hasn't learned a thing. But I noticed you're picking up where the Teen Titans left off, as opposed to just, oh, it's Robin and we're forgetting everything he ever did. Because did you have a say in how that ended, or were you like, this is going to be perfect because I want him to have a fresh start?
I wanted him to have a fresh start. I wanted him a little bit away from the Bat family again, which I know isn't for everyone. It makes everybody happy, but it's like I needed to get him back. My goal was, so I knew how that story was going to end. That story, that whole thing with him going up against Batman, the Teen Titans thing, that had been in the works for a long time.
Okay.
Right. So
it did feel like properly planned out. It didn't feel like it came out of nowhere that Damian was like fed up with it all and left. It was like, oh, this is kind of worked out.
That was planned for a really long time. And originally it was going to go like a different direction. There were other plans and stuff, you know, and you know, like obviously things changed. Plans changed in the last year. So it's like he was going a completely different direction. And I was always like, had my eye on it. Like I was always, again, like I like that character a lot. So every meeting, every time he came up, I was always like, oh man, like I want to write him, but I want to write him like this. And so then when it came
Teen
up,
Titans, you want to write Damian.
I wanted Damian, yeah. Well, I wanted his own book. I wanted his own adventure. I wanted to get him away from the kids, and that was part of it. Is I wanted to get away from other people's stories, so he could have his own story.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like when he's in Teen Titans, that's a Teen Titans book, and it's like all these other characters are there, and people always seem to want to write him as a villain, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to make him a hero again.
Thank you. He always does that.
Yeah, I know, but I also don't want to like.
I'm not saying those runs are bad. It's just it always feels like whenever someone takes over, he starts over like I'm a little shit. You're just gonna have to deal with me. Like,
no. I wanted to.
And he grows again.
Direction. Yeah, I wanted him to like go in a different direction, but I wanted to take what had happened before and just start getting him over here. But I also recognize that takes time, so I couldn't just flip a switch. Right, I had to give him kind of a challenge. And if you look at. So I didn't do all the work by myself, though. It's like if you go look at the end of Teen Titans, there was the annual where he left, but then he was in Detective Comics for a little bit. Like, you know, Peter Tomasi did a story with him as Damian, not as Robin, but as Damian in Detective. And so he laid some of the groundwork of him kind of getting past the stuff from that. So I got to read all of Tomasi stuff ahead of time, so I got to see the stuff that he was doing, the direction he was taking him in, so that I could pick up from there, not just Teen Titans. Like I'm not just taking up immediately from there and then running over here.
Right.
But I don't think I ignore anything in the last couple of years, but I did want to make it so if somebody came in and just wants to read a fun Robin book and just a fun Damian book, he's still a little shit at times. But it's like,
he's Batman's kid. He has to be. Like he's never going to be
super cocky.
that.
Well, that's part of what. I mean, that's part of what this book is about. It really is about him growing, and I think playing a couple things out differently than the way he would before. We have a lot of conversations about this. Like there's a scene in issue 2 where we talked about this a bunch of like, does this negate his growth? Does this show that he has learned nothing in the last, his time with Batman? And it was like, yes, like I was able to find ways of doing it. Like that's always the thing of like trying to find ways of respecting the stuff that's happened in the past, but also trying to do something different and new with him. But still have some fun with the kid. He's a son of Batman. He is super cocky. He is super full of himself. All of those things are still there, but he's also like the sweetest kid. Like there's a vulnerable part of him, and I still want to explore all of that and play with those ideas. And so a lot of that will be in the book You know, I don't want to ignore the stuff that happened, but at the same time, like in the first issue, there's a part at the beginning where, and I think this art's out there. I think Gleb posted it, but it's like in the background, like it's Batman and Robin, they're jumping off a building together, but in the background, you like, you know, the basics. It's like son of Batman. He was in Super Sons, like he hung out with their kids. Him and Batman had a falling out, and now here we are. Like those are the pieces I need you to know, right? Like I want you to know that stuff, and then let's just go and start playing around with him. You know, getting to have some fun with that character. So I'm not gonna ignore this stuff that's come, but I definitely want to keep him going in a different direction. But it's all about getting him back to being a hero and how that can be hard. You know,
I love that idea though, because I'm so used to reading a Damian story, and I've loved everything Damian's been in. I think everyone's done a great job giving him a voice throughout the years. But I think the most obvious one that DC wanted to keep him stuck in, that like, oh, he's got to just always be a little shit, was in Teen Titans Rebirth. We got to like issue 20, and then they rebooted the team, and everything he learned about having a team for the first 20 issues got rebooted. I was oh, we're back to learning how to be a teammate. Cool.
Yeah, that's what this he doesn't want to be. I almost had him have a line of like, you know, I work alone or anything like that, but I was like, nah. And he still gets surrounded by people throughout this arc. Like he kind of builds, I don't want to say he builds a new team, but he definitely has a different supporting cast. Like Ravager is in the cast. Like she offers to train him. Because once they get there, so the book is about Robin finds out that there is a tournament. So he finds out that there were the League of Assassins, League of Shadows that work for his father and work for his mother, right? And there's all kinds of politics there among those groups. But then he finds out this whole time there was a third group called the League of Lazarus who worked really early with Ra's al Ghul and then broke off, and we never heard of them since then. Mm-hmm. And Damian is like, I have access to the back computer. I have access to all our family archives. I've never heard about this. How was it kept a secret? Why was it kept a secret? Like, what is going on with this? And the fact that it was kept from him specifically, like, really, it's a case in his brain. He's like, that's a case. I have to go explore that. And so he goes to figure out what that is. Like, why was this thing kept secret from him? And does Batman know? If Batman doesn't know, that's even more interesting to him. So he's like, I gotta go figure out what this is. And he finds out that there is a tournament, like, on this island called Lazarus Island, and everyone is going there to prove they're the greatest fighter in the world. All these different people, all these different fighters from the DCU are coming, and there's a lot of cool surprises and guest stars, and then there's stuff that like will be because the arc is kind of long. It's actually I'm not doing it like, that's one thing with this book. I'm not doing it like, okay guys, here's our 6 issues because it has to fit in a trade.
Right.
It's like,
Thank you. You're saying everything I want to hear on a new Damian arc.
Yeah, because dude, there's going to be like each issue kind of has a focus. Not getting too deep into planning, but it's like, you know, I just wanted to breathe and take our time with it and have some fun with it, and have like each issue has a different kind of focus. And it is about him learning something new throughout this whole thing in many different ways, and learning something about himself. There's a lot more there, because I think that's the thing about Teen Titans. Is he does learn something about himself in Teen Titans sometimes, but he always turns on that team in some form or another.
Yeah.
Right?
That's always the arc that always happens. And it's just always the Teen Titans becomes more interesting to see how does the team deal with Damian when he does Damian. Is basically what every Teen Titans arc turns into. Yeah. And they've all got their great ways of doing it, but it's
I want something different. Different. I think that it became much more of a like, and that's why I plotted stuff out so far out, is I just wanted to show a different story for Damian. You know, I think we've seen that. I want to think different, and then we get to the stuff with him later down the line with him and some of the other characters. There's like surprises. I'm trying to keep them secret.
Yeah,
I have no idea how hard it is to keep a secret in comics. There's really covers coming will like they'll spoil stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
everyone knows.
I'm always like, please keep this cover secret for like an extra week.
A lot of people like to hit me up and they'll say things like, oh, did you read the solicits? Can you believe what's happening? And I literally go, I don't read solicits because it spoils too much.
Yeah.
Like I try to get as close as I can to not getting that spoiler, and solicits ruin it for me.
Yeah. I do the same. I try to write the solicits because I actually write the Robin solicits. So I try to write the Robin solicits as normally they don't let us do that, but normally they don't let us do that, but I'm super picky. I use that word.
Yeah.
Because you don't want the solicit to reveal everything. Like that's always the worst part.
Yeah. Oh, gee, there are times there was a previews one time that in preview, so when they were still printing previews last year before they stopped, there was a previews copy that literally said Godspeed dies. Like, was it bold? It was big bold. It was on the cover image, but only in the printed previews. So nothing digital, nothing else. Only in the printed previews. It was like Godspeed. Godspeed dies. After Godspeed's death, all this stuff. I was like, what? Because I used to get the printed ones too, and so I used to have a stack of them like in my office. I used to have all these printed previews of all the companies because I used to work at a comic store, so it's like
right.
I still had that like obsession with like reading previews every month. I used to read it cover to cover, like everything, every solicit, every book for Marvel, DC, Image, everything. I used to read them, and even though I haven't worked at a store in like I don't know, like 15, 16 years, 17 years, I think.
Yeah.
I still would get previews every month, and I would read them and stuff, and so I still had that. So when I got my copy of previews, I'm like flipping through it, and I got the DC section. Yeah, sure enough, boom, right there. It was like
what?
Godspeed dies, and I was like, what? And I told them, I'm like, so ever since when Robin, I don't know what it was, I asked them, I was like, hey, I texted the editor, and I was like, I can always tell if I text an editor and they call me immediately instead of texting me back.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a conversation. I text like, hey man, can I write the solicits? And he called me and said, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? And I was like, I like writing the solicits. I mean, I write the solicits for all the Image books that I do, and I've done it in the past. I wrote solicits every once in a while for Flash. So actually in Flash, I would say the last 6-7 months of Flash, I wrote those solicits too.
Mm-hmm.
Normally editorial does it. They'll do it. I love getting to look at it because if I have weird pet peeves. If I literally see in your solicit in this issue. Why is that even there?
Because I know it's in the issue. I'm reading the solicit.
Yeah, don't put. If I see a solicit start with "in this issue," I'm like, no, just cut that. You can actually cut that one part, and it still work. Dude.
Right.
So, but yeah, they'll send me sometimes, and sometimes they nail it. Like, or I'll give it to them, and they'll they'll put like the spin on it, and I'm like, oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like Infinite Frontier. I actually didn't write that one. That one was written. I think it was written by Jamie and then some other editors and like marketing and sales. Like the Infinite Frontier Zero solicit was written all by them.
Mm-hmm.
I had like 2 or 3 notes on it. But for the most part, yeah, Robin's solicits are written by me. Specifically, that I want to give things away.
Right.
Or I'm selective about what I do want to give away, right?
Yeah.
So I do want to give away. But I think one of the best examples of this recently was Daredevil, right? So it's like, the Daredevil solicits were like, Daredevil's doing this, Matt Murdock is doing this, right?
Yeah.
No one realized that it was basically telling you that Matt Murdock is not Daredevil.
Right.
In the solicits, they were not saying it, but then once it was revealed that Elektra is now Daredevil,
you're like,
you can go back and you can read the solicits, and they're telling you the truth. They're not lying. Daredevil's doing this, Matt Murdock is doing this. I think stuff like that is gold.
That is really
awesome. It's like you're able to tell the reader something that is not giving it away, but once you get into the story, you can go back and read and go, oh, this is what was happening.
Yeah,
and so you're going to make me overanalyze your solicits now,
right?
So they're like, Robin is going to an island. What does he mean by island?
Yeah. How will this pay off in 6 months?
The Ravager is one that I was like, we can totally give away the Ravagers there on the island. She's helping train him.
That's awesome.
I think that's fun, and then what that even means, like, what is Ravager training him? I mean, he was trained by Batman.
Right. What does he need? Yeah.
Possibly teach him, and that's part of the story. Like, what is it that she's going to teach him? What can she do? And then his other encounters with these other characters. There's a scene in issue 3 where he's talking to some of the other fighters, and he's kind of showing off and being, trying to show, like, he's also trying to beef himself up, like Damian is still that kid, right? But he's around all these like other assassins. Like, for the most part, when Batman's around people, Damon is around Batman or the Bat family, or he's around the Teen Titans, right? How often is he around just like a bunch of other fighters, like a bunch of other people who have also been trained by people like that?
Yeah.
And so he's around a bunch of them, and he's trying to like beef himself up and show like how cool he is, and typical Damian a little bit. And then they start talking about how cool he is, but then one of them is, oh man, one time your dad like beat the shit out of me, like in this alley. Like, oh man, he did this back kick. It's so cool. I've never seen anybody do that before. How did you do that with a cape? And then one other character is like, oh, his dad did that to you? Let me tell you what his dad did to me one time.
And it just completely dwarfs.
Yeah, it's like, oh, now this is about my dad.
Yeah.
It's about everyone here knows my dad in some way, or being like, oh man, one time I saw Batman do this. Like, all of a sudden, all these fighters are talking about his dad. And it becomes like that thing in, it's like in Creed, where everyone starts talking about Apollo and being like, oh, his dad was this, his dad was that, and your dad, and there's plus and minuses of that, right? When you're talking about Apollo, it's like, oh, he was this amazing fighter, but then he died in the ring, so there's like that stuff going on. So that happens to him there too. It's a fun book, dude. It's very different from I think anything else I've done. But that's been my real goal after Flash, just like really to mix it up and do stuff that's like totally different and just have some fun and be, I don't use the word calculating, because they offered me stuff. We had talked about a bunch of different books in this last year, and there was only one that got away that I'm not going to talk about now. There was only one that got away, but for the most part, I was able to do like all this cool stuff and do fun things. And yeah, man, that's been pretty wild. What else you got, you Damien fan? What else you got for me? What else are you concerned about?
Right.
Hey, well, I'm trying to think of questions to ask that don't like just, oh, I hated this and I hated that.
Yeah,
I'm trying to not make it into like, let's shit on old writers day. You know what I mean? Like,
no. Yeah. Oh, I get that. Yeah.
It's funny. Dude, that's the only problem with being a fan of comics and watching character. Like, my biggest complaint with Damien is always, I love his growth. And then whenever someone takes over, they always restart it with, well, he's the Bat family member no one liked. I feel like they always restart him back at when Grant Morrison left him.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to go right back to that. I loved Grant Morrison's Damien, and I've read nothing in between. So this is must be where it started.
No, I wanted to, because I'm so obsessed with continuity. I mean, I did the same thing with Flash. Like, I didn't start Flash like completely over.
That's why I loved your Flash, because it didn't forget everything.
Yeah, well, I'm obsessed with that stuff. Like, I get busted sometimes. Like, there's time I say busted, but I've gotten calls from editors where they're like, why are you doing this scene? What is this? And I'm like, well, actually, that references this comic book for 20 years ago. Like, this is what's happening with this, and like, oh, well, the reason I'm doing this is because of this.
Yeah,
like,
paying off this thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's like at my end of my Batman Superman run, I had a Solomon Grundy issue, and I had Poison Ivy talk about Solomon and, all this stuff about Solomon Grundy, and they were like, is this all continuity? They were like, what continuity is this? And I was like, well, references these comics. And they're like, yeah, but that's all pre-Flashpoint. And I'm like,
so? Yeah, well, so was Nightfall.
Still applies. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, but dude, you should imagine like us at summits. There have been times where we've been at a summit and some creator has been like, oh, I didn't like this story. And that creator's in the room. And they didn't realize that creator's like sitting at the table or in the room with them somehow. And they're just like,
they just know the story. They don't know the names.
Well, that's the problem that Sal and I run into sometimes, because we just kind of want to like cut loose and be like, oh, let's talk about this, that, and things I didn't like and things I did like. But then we also, a lot of people watch these shows. And,
like they're human beings who are like.
Yeah, and I'm like, I've always had the philosophy of, and the reason why I never try to shit on things in comics is because there's so many things I do enjoy. And like, I don't. There's no reason to really attack things.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the same way. I don't really read stuff I don't like.
Right. Like, and that's just it.
Yeah, I don't watch things I don't like. I don't know.
People are always like, "What is your opinion on season 5 of this show you said you didn't like?" I stopped watching it at season 1 when I didn't like it.
I've not seen 4. Like,
I have never. I don't know. I never understand that impulse to focus on the stuff you didn't like about something. I see it all the time. People have like grudges about things they've either never read or never they just have these weird. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I've never really understood that, to focus so much of your energy. There's this thing.
I have people that hit us up because we'll get something wrong in a great of somebody holding a weird grudge.
Yeah.
So when we first started doing this, I actually think it might have been at that year that you and I met, and I thought you were mad at me, but it was like
we should talk about that. We've talked about that.
I think we have talked about that before on the air, but
and I was not mad at you. Yeah.
But it was like we were on the uptick. Everything was doing really well. We were still brand new. Me, Sal, Rob, all of us were kind of meeting these cons, and this one fan shows up, and he gets in the line for a signing that we were doing at some booth, and he didn't have anything to sign. What he wanted to know, he literally stood in that line for like 30 minutes to let me know that I got Transformers lore wrong, and that he needed to correct me that I got it wrong and wanted to know when I'll make an official correction video.
There's a comment
he wanted you
section.
to for retraction?
Yeah,
He wanted you to put a retraction.
Like I did one Transformers video and I said something about Megatron being on one planet and not the other. And they were like, you got that wrong. And you really need to correct that and give a correction to the video because you had. And I was like, I did one Transformers video, man. We're not doing another one. So,
like, you think you guys think there's some kind of like arbiter that like keeps us from like that holds us accountable and put some kind of like barrier. No. Like, we're just a couple of mooks on the internet talking about comics. Like,
exactly.
I could
we have like,
channel just talking about making up stuff.
Like knowledge. Yeah, I forget stuff too. Like, and you blink in the moment. You know, you're talking about something. I've had people correct me in the last few weeks because I've done like a lot of podcasts and I've done a lot of interviews recently, and I've had a lot of people come on and be like, "Oh, well, you forgot about this, or you missed this person's name." Like, I've been getting a lot of that lately.
Yeah.
Welcome to our world then.
Yeah, I bet. Dude, I don't know how you guys. Yeah,
you forgot about is the big one. And it's like, no, I didn't forget. I just didn't mention it. Like,
or you didn't mention it. That's another thing, dude.
Yeah.
That happened. I was on a podcast a few weeks ago, and somebody asked me about the Robins. They asked me about the Robins, like Damian, Tim, Nightwing, the whole thing. And they asked me specifically about Tim.
Okay.
So they're like, I have a question about Tim. And I was like, cool. So I answered their question about Tim. I was like, oh, here's what's going on with Tim. And I was like, I can't talk about it right now, but here are the plans for Tim, right? All good. And then somebody online got really upset because I didn't talk about the Batgirls. And me not talking about the Batgirls meant there were no plans for the Batgirls.
That's an extrapolation and a half, but
And they were coming at me like, how come all this stuff? And I was like, if somebody asked me Batgirls, I would say the same thing. I'm like, listen, there's really cool stuff coming for the Batgirls. I promise you.
Yeah.
Like, there is a Batgirls, and that's why I wrote a Batgirls short last year. Was part of that. I'm not writing the Batgirls plans. I mean, I'm in those conversations and stuff, and I think they're really cool. It's really great stuff coming. But that doesn't mean the lack of me talking about a character doesn't mean there's no plans for that character.
Right.
It really means like I'm not in charge of everything,
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. It's funny. I think, especially considering right now with editorial at DC, where there are so many people who work at DC who love DC comics and have like their favorites, and a lot of them have. I'm telling you right now, like the people who work at DC right now, yes, everybody there loves like the heavy hitters, but they're just like us, where they're like so many of their favorites, these people that like are the B or C characters.
Yeah.
Again, someone's gonna get mad at me if I mention one of their characters as a C character.
Booster Gold does not see. Like,
I actually like messing with people with that kind of a thing because I'll just, Red Hood's one of my favorites, and he's like an E level character, and they're like, wait, what do you mean E level? I'm like, I just demote everyone to these crazy low levels just to mess with
just
everyone.
to see them. Yeah, that's funny. I never thought about doing that. I definitely should do that from now on.
I do it a lot with Iron Fist because everyone's like, what do you think about the new Iron Fist stuff? I'm like, oh yeah, he's one of my favorite F level characters. Yeah, he's.
Yeah, there's somebody I was having this conversation with somebody, with a buddy of mine. We were talking about comic book stuff, and I was talking about this one particular character, and he was like, nobody cares about that character, and I was like, let me tell you something. Like, every single character has a number one fan.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Number one fan is like, especially the lower down you get.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a lack of that character, right? Like the lower you get. I asked this question. I had word balloon the other day, and I asked John this question. I'm going to ask you guys this question. It's two parts. All right, it's two parts. This question. So, what is your guys' favorite, like, heavy hitter DC character, and then what is your favorite below A-lister? We'll use that phrase.
Okay.
Who's your favorite A-lister, and then who's your below A-lister for you guys? Like, which one?
I mean, I'm the big Bat Family fan, so it's just always Batman, and then Red Hood's normally like right below that. I literally have to.
Oh, is Red Hood?
Yeah, it's normally Red, because I love that he's been developed into someone, which is what my complaints are with what they've done with Damian. They developed Red Hood, and Damian keeps looping.
Yeah, dude, this is really weird. I was going to ask you a question just now. Obviously, you haven't read, but I was like, have you read the Red Hood Chip Zdarsky story in Batman Urban Legends? And then I realized that isn't out yet.
No, I haven't. Thanks.
It looks awesome. It looks awesome, man.
Oh, good to know.
It's really cool, and the stuff that with Red Hood is really cool. I think it was definitely more about getting him back in with the Bat Family and stuff like that. So if you're a Red Hood fan, that's where you can go with that. But
I'm excited to see what they're going to do with him because he's been away for so long, and they did such a long run of him just continually developing, and I think it works because they had one writer on it. It's why like your Flash did really well, and why I like Tom King's Batman, because you had it was just a long run. So you're not going to contradict yourself.
Yeah. No, they have cool stuff coming with him. But all right, Sal, what's up? Who's your favorite and who's your below?
I gotta tell you, it used to be Batman, but I'm turning around towards Superman as I get older.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
It's between the two of them. I think it's always Batman. So Batman A-list, and then I kind of like. I don't know if it counts, so I'm gonna go with Ted Kord.
Oh, Blue Beetle.
Yeah, Blue Beetle.
Why wouldn't he
all
count?
Right, so,
wait, evil version, time travel.
No, I was gonna say the one I was thinking of doesn't count because he just literally hasn't been allowed to be published, which is Static. Like,
they just announced today.
I know, like he's gonna get a book, but like he hasn't been in print in like a decade. So
yeah, Static is a weird one. So this is what I'm gonna ask you guys then. All right, and I think I already answered the question with the Red Hood stuff because of Urban Legends, but this is the thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. Is like, if your favorite character, because obviously Batman and Superman, they're always gonna have a book.
They're never gonna not print it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one time there wasn't Superman comics was when he died, and that was just part of a strategic plan. Right?
Yeah.
Like, we've talked about this. That was a strategic plan to not have Superman books. For 3 months, you believe he was dead. That was on purpose, right? If there was no Red Hood comic, if there was no Blue Beetle comic, or like you just said, Static, does that diminish your love of that character? And do you feel like that is a statement that that character is no longer cool if they don't have their own?
No,
not at all. I'm under the philosophy of I would rather there be just solid stories of a character coming out. Like I get why stuff like Batman never ends, but I would prefer hey, here's just a solid Red Hood storyline for a year, and then we're taking a break. And we're going to come back with another amazing story as opposed to filler stories to get to the next big one.
Yeah, that's my personal opinion too. Like I can't speak for DC, but I do feel like I feel as though that is a great model for some of these characters. Like I would rather there be a 12-issue Red Hood thing, or like this story that's in Batman Urban Legends with Red Hood is only 6 issues, and then Red Hood is the main POV for the first arc of Gotham. He's the main POV of the Future State Gotham book.
Okay.
So it's like I mean, that book is really about all of Gotham. It's not just him, but he's the entry into that world.
Right.
I don't know. I'd rather there be so Blue Beetle. It's like I'd rather somebody come in and say, I'm really passionate about a Blue Beetle series. I have this thing I want to do. This beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
And then at the ending, you get this dope Blue Beetle hardcover.
Right.
From that point forward, if someone says, I'm a huge fan of this, like I love Blue Beetle, where do I go? It's like, we'll start here. I mean,
Reach for this book.
Tom's been really good about that in terms of like
Mr. Miracle, Strange Adventures. Yeah.
Yeah. If somebody's sitting there, well, look at Vision, right? Like Vision, obviously with WandaVision, people are going out in droves and buying Vision. They're doing a new printing of it. It's like I think things like that there should be more of that for those characters specifically.
Totally.
Like I think for Batman, even years ago when I initially pitched, I'm obsessed with this because when I initially pitched Flash, my plan was only a 12-issue story. Like I wanted to do this initial 12-issue thing because that was before I knew Rebirth was coming. So all those toys weren't on the table yet. It was like I just want to do a 12-issue Flash story, and this is what it's about. And so I went to Dan and them. I pitched it as that, and that was the thing that they were like, "Oh, we want you to do the ongoing series after that." But there was a moment there where Dan liked the pitch enough in the beginning where he was like, "Even if there's 2 Flash books for a while, if it's just you doing this 12-issue series, it's this story that is an evergreen Flash thing."
Yeah.
And then there's the book. But then that was like right as Rebirth was like becoming Rebirth internally, was right when I was pitching that. So then it got merged in, and obviously things changed. And then I was like, oh, all the toys could be on the table.
Exactly.
And then it became a conversation of like, well, how do I bring the Flash family back? Well, these are the goals I have for this book, is to do these things. And it's like, oh, Wally's on the table, I would like to try Wally. So it's like once those things started coming together, it definitely changed. But I remember I went to dinner with a bunch of salespeople and then a bunch of people who were book buyers for other, for bookstores. And I sat down, I had so many questions, and I was just like, what are your guys' sales like for these books? What are the things that always sell no matter what? Like, what are the number one sales for each character?
Yeah.
Like, what's the number one thing that sells you for Superman, for Batman, and Green Lantern? And there was obviously patterns there. And so ever since then, I've been trying to look for those kinds of patterns and things. And it became more of like, I guess I really advocate for this where I try to talk about in the room, when I'm in the room, I try to say like, well, we need more things like this, not just because of sales, but I do think like Blue Beetle, for an example. Like I would really rather just be a Blue Beetle 12-issue thing. And there are plans for that character and stuff like that, but it's like I would rather try to make an effort to make that than here is. And I say this like I'm a hypocrite when I say this, but it's like after being on the Flash for over 100 issues,
Right.
it's like I do think it would be cool on some of these characters if we could just make these definitive things. Like I was just pitching Hush a lot. I think Hush is kind of perfect because you get, at the time you get like an A-list writer, A-list artist.
Yep.
Jim's on it for all 12 issues.
Yeah.
And it looks beautiful, and it tells a self-contained story. But the other thing that does is that book, not only is it like a self-contained Batman story, it is it's all the greatest hits. It's all the villains.
Yep.
All the big name villains are in there. There's some shocks in there, and introduces a new character. And he has Superman in it. Like he fights Superman in it. Like,
right.
You're talking about literally somebody is like, I'm gonna make a 12-issue thing that is a solid story that has all the. If you love Batman, here are all the pieces you need.
Yep.
For this 12 issues. Or look at something like Long Halloween.
Yeah.
It's like all these things have all these pieces, and I think about this a lot. And it's funny right now. Like I don't always engage or respond in places. Most times I'm busy. Like I have too much going on all the time to answer a million questions on Twitter. But I do see occasionally I look, and it is overwhelming at times to get down there and be like, oh my god, there's so much going on here. And then I look, and it's like all these questions about all these characters. But also, I will never blow up somebody else's plan. Like somebody, you know what I mean? Like, it would suck if somebody is like, oh, this is my favorite character. And I'm like, oh man, I know all about it. Here's what's coming. And I just like totally like fuck up.
And the other writers just they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I didn't want to talk about that yet. Like, that would suck. I would feel bad, and I would be in trouble for that. So there's that stuff too. I don't want to get out there and do that. But I do think that it's like, right now, I can tell, talking to editorial, like everybody's trying to figure something out for a lot of these characters and trying to figure out ways of just doing something that's different too.
Yeah.
Like not just repeat the same beats that have been done before.
Yeah.
So I'm guilty of that too.
I'm a huge fan of the Flash, and that's what I loved about what you did with it, because I feel like a lot of older Flash stories always resolve with, can he go faster? Which is my biggest complaint with the CW show, because that's like the resolution to every season.
Just runs a little faster.
Just go a little bit faster, and you got this down. Like,
yeah. I thought about that a lot. I knew that criticism, and I felt that criticism. Every story is like each runs faster.
But
so
you kept introducing like the forces, and you had like the Flash War, and then you were given the powers. So you had a good way of like getting us different ways of handling it.
Yeah,
which is what I enjoyed.
Yeah, the forces is the only thing I wish I could go back and like redo. I don't know, the forces were a weird thing. That's an example of things getting like written out of order and not really like landing the way I wanted, or wanting to like get it where I needed it. It became this thing, and because we were always writing stuff out of order, that's one piece. That's part of why once I was able to break free of it, I broke free of it, because I was like, this is not landing the way I wanted to. This is not working the way I wanted to. It was something that came from editorial. And so when it came from editorial, like me trying to figure it out, but I was so obsessed with getting the Flash family back. That was always my goals of like getting them back.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, if we're using these new forces thing, the new forces get me this. Can it get me here? It's always like, what can I do to get over here? And but yeah, I try to always add new stuff to the mythology too, and try to like mix it up. But I didn't want it to be that like just, oh, Barry runs faster. That's why in the ending, like he doesn't defeat Thawne by running faster. Like it wasn't like, we're gonna race and I'm gonna beat you to something. I didn't want it to be that.
You named it Finish Line, and I was legit going, all right, this is the arc where he's gonna do the normal Flash ending, and he's just gonna outrun Reverse Flash. This is gonna be the traditional Flash finale. And then you didn't do that.
No, because I thought about how Reverse Flash had been beaten before, and all of them were really creative. It's like when Wally beat him at the end of Return of Barry Allen, he tricked him to making him think that he was going to go back in time and kill him as a baby.
Yeah. Which, of course,
is so funny.
Because that's literally what gave Thawne the idea. Like, Thawne's like, okay, good idea. Go back in time. Torment my tormentor. Got it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. It's funny. Like, I think I was on this panel one time, and the moderator was like, you added so much history to Thawne. You completely wrote Thawne's history. And I was like, nope. Go back and read Blitz. If you go back and read Blitz, there's a lot of mythology in there about, like, there's a scene in the background where Hunter Zolomon is being taught about the rogues in a class, an FBI class, for profiling. and they have all this stuff written on the wall in the back of the classroom about Thawne and obsession and all this stuff and love and all these things about how obsession can be. And there's that. And then if you go back and you read Return of Barry Allen, that whole thing where he's explaining how he was this like hardcore fanboy who was obsessed with him and wanted to be him.
Yeah.
Like he had himself, the reason he went back in time and looked like Barry was because he literally had plastic surgery in the future to look like Barry.
Yeah.
Like he had it. It wasn't like, that wasn't part of his trick. He did it on purpose because he was that obsessed with Barry. He wanted to be him. Yeah. And that's why with Finish Line, that's why I had him go into Barry's body, because he was like, I want to be you. It was an extension of that.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like, I wasn't necessarily, I was shining a light on it. I wasn't necessarily rewriting it or redefining his character and changing it. I was going back and looking at all these pieces and being like, here's all these pieces. Let's just put a light on it. It says what it is. And then keep escalating. That's why I took over his body and his obsession with being Barry. Like that's really what it was. He's
where it all
wanted
comes
to
from.
be Barry out. Yeah.
How did it feel to hand Reverse Flash that new power that basically
the whispering?
that answered all of Rebirth's big what ifs, and then just go, and now it's gone.
Yeah. I was so sure they weren't going to let me do that, because that was the plan from the beginning. So like way back in issue, if you go back, so one of the things I had thought about at one point, so this is about, how to explain this. All right, so at the end of New 52 Flash, he beat Thawne at the end, like right before. The last story arc was a Rogue story, but right before that was a versus Thawne story.
Yeah.
And he beat him, and then Thawne just got locked up in Iron Heights. He was locked in Iron Heights. And I was trying to figure out how do I use him. He's just locked up in Iron Heights. Like he's the greatest supervillain for the Flash, and he's just still in Iron Heights. But he's also like a bigger.
Didn't they have him like upside down or something? Like he was.
No, that was before. That was stuff in pre-Flashpoint.
Okay.
Actually, they had him upside down, and then I think that was when like Captain Boomerang came in and freed him. That's all like Brightest Day Flash era stuff.
Okay,
But,
all right.
he so I had him locked up, and I was like trying to figure out how to like get him, escalate him as a character. So even early on, I was teasing this stuff about him, and also because he time travels, there's all kinds of like shenanigans with him, and I was able to. So I had this plot, and that's why in issue 9 of the Flash, there's that scene where you see Barry is starting to snap, like there's something wrong.
Right.
And he's starting to snap, and you see behind him, you see that like his energy trail is Thawne, and Thawne is whispering to him and being like, "You're gonna fail, you're gonna mess up." That was all tied into like Rebirth, time travel shenanigans, but also the stuff that Thawne was doing. And I was trying to say that like Thawne has been manipulating, because I was like, listen, if Thawne wanted to hurt him, would he really stop with killing his mom? And then like the joke of like pushing him down the stairs and all that stuff, like it was me, Barry. I was always like that, because I love that meme, but I was it seems so silly that like the extent of it was like, I tricked you while you were playing soccer that one time. Haha, supervillain. It's like it's like you gotta have something else going.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I gotta figure some stuff out of how he manipulates him. But it's okay, if you're Thawne and you want to mess with them, it's not just about him; it's about the Flash family. And so I was able to go through, and then over the years, I was always having to pivot because other things would come up.
Right.
And it's like, obviously we're having to pivot because of Heroes in Crisis, or we're having to pivot because of whatever, things not working out, or things I had to wait for a couple plot elements because of other books and stuff. And, I had to move things around. And every time a person acted out of character, I was always like, that's just fun. Like I that's just gone. And I knew that was going to be the ending. And I remember when I wrote that scene, again, I'd write this stuff out of order. And so that ending, those 2 issues were written pretty early because Howard had to do them. I think that's why the third to last issue is kind of packed, because I probably should have had 2 issues instead of that one. But I ran out of room. It was like, because the Howard issues were going to do the last 2, and they weren't going to be oversized and be regular size. Like the 2 issues before that, it's like one of them really works, and the other one is kind of smacked together because I ran out of room. I was like, oh no, I should have. Oh, well, this is it. This is it. At the ending, so
Super crap.
I can't ask for another issue. This is what we're doing. And so I had to fit all this stuff together. And then as we were getting closer and closer to that, so it was the Thawne is behind everything. You know, he had whispered to Wally to cover it up. It was why Wallace kept agreeing to go with Damian for all this stuff, even though he knew it was wrong, not telling anybody. It's why they fought each other. Like, all this stuff that was kind of in the works the whole time. I mean, I was like, any minute now, somebody from DC is going to be like, "You can't do that."
Right.
I was
just ruined it all.
I was waiting, or even just the last issue where he says like, "I forgive you" to Thawne. I was like, somebody's going to be like, "No, you can't do that." And then not only that, but then it was like, Speed Metal I had written at the same time. So I wrote Speed Metal at the same time as I wrote those 2 issues, the last 2. So it's all gearing to this whole like happy ending.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
like Barry goes to a barbecue with the Flash family, and then he gets to run off into the sunset knowing who he is and why he's doing what he's doing, and no longer feeling this doubt. And then talking to his mom at the end and saying like, it's not about you anymore, it's about this, and I'm going to have a better life, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave the stuff in the past. And then him get to go to Wally and tell Wally like, you know, you deserve to be the Flash and all this stuff, and be able to have these pieces. Man, I kept waiting for somebody to tell me no.
Yeah.
Like every second. And the closest we got was I got a call about the wording of some of Thawne's language on that page. As a 9-panel grid, and he goes, you know, telling everybody, I got a call about the wording. Man, I was so paranoid. I was so just like, you have to let me have this, because this has been building to this since the beginning. Like, everything about Barry is building to finish line for years now. Like, from you know, I knew what issue 1 was. 1 through 8 are one story, but once you think about like the Rebirth issue plus issue 9, everything from 9 on has been building to this moment. Like, we've been seeding this whole time.
Right.
If somebody goes back and they read the whole run, they're going to see how everything has been building to those issues of him saying, like, I keep making mistakes because I'm not actually moving forward because you haven't moved forward. Because Thawne will not move forward as a person. You and I are tethered together. I need you to move on. But that doesn't mean me killing you, because killing you in the past was a mistake. So I have to do something different. And what he does is he gives Thawne a better life, right? Like, that is, you know, by saying, I forgive you, is him letting go, you know, of that part of his life. And then by giving Thawne the better future where Thawne can be happy, it allows him to be happy, allows him to move forward. Everything is building to this. You know, it's Thawne doing the worst thing of like, I just with you, I with your family, and Thawne still, you know, and Barry still have a way to forgive him. Everything's been building to that. So I was just like, oh man, please, let's not, you know, and they let me do it. They let me do it. Like, the closest we came was there was some questions about very specific wording, and we went back and forth on it. It worked out, and then it worked out, and it got to be the ending I wanted it to be. And then I was done with those characters until we started talking about Infinite Frontier, and then I was like, I have one more thing I want to do. I have one more thing. It was funny because it was like, you know, yeah, they pull me back in.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, back in, like, because yeah, the week that both Speed Metal and Flash came out, it was super surreal, because it was like, this has been a part of my life since spring of 2015.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
You know, I remember back in spring of 2015 at C2E2 was the first time I had a conversation of like, maybe you should write the Flash. And then, you know, I wrote it for, you know, like, yeah, a year later it's coming out. And I've been sometimes a piece of my like life for so long. So the week those issues came out, it was super weird, but that's when I started having those conversations with DC, more of like, I mean, at that point I knew some of the books I was doing. I think I had like 3 of the 5 books greenlit by then. 3 of them. Yeah, 3 of them had been greenlit by then. So I knew what I was doing, but then it became this whole conversation of like, what else I want to do long term, and what are my, you know, my thoughts on a lot of different stuff. But then this Infinite Frontier stuff came up of doing this special issue, and we started talking about the beats that we wanted to land and then move forward. And one of them was, we wanted to kind of put a circle on the Wally and Barry relationship, and we wanted to do one more thing. And part of it is because of death metal being this big, crazy, like Asia Apocalypse level epic thing, I think there's sometimes confusion of like, when does death metal happen?
Right.
And it was like, we wanted to pinpoint like, okay, this is the rule. Everything that happened before Future State, all of that happened. So all of it's here. Now we're starting March, and it's all happened. Now we're moving forward, right? Like, everything's go forward. But with their relationship, because I resolved, this was a conversation we had in the summer with some of the Wally stuff. It was like, I was like, guys, I promise you, like, by the time someone reads Speed Metal, like, I get you what you need for that character. Like, he goes on the emotional journey across that issue, and he realizes what he needs, and at the ending, he's like back in the role of being Wally again. And
Right.
And so with Infinite Frontier, I just had one more thing I wanted to do, and we had talked about it, and I just like stuck a claim on it. Like in the meeting, I was like, I'm writing that part. And this is how many pages it's gonna be, and this is what we're gonna do, and Howard's gonna draw it. And so it's like an epilogue to what I was doing, but it's really about getting those characters, sort of moving them forward,
Right.
and letting other people play with them, but getting them to a better place. So that's like, I feel like is my final say on those characters. It's funny because I think, I remember when I was in the middle of my run, I kept thinking about how Mark Waid and Jeff came back to the Flash after years of being away, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to leave something unsaid. And I mean, Jeff's is different because he came back for Barry, right? Like, that was his reason for coming back. Where I think Mark came back because he had more to tell with that character. And it's, I think for both of them, it's their favorite character. Like their favorite. Well, I mean, Superman is obviously Mark Waid's favorite character. But, so I wanted to. I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to come back to it. But I want to come back and just like restart what I was doing. And but that's why with this, I was like, I have one more thing to do. And it's not like I don't want to write those characters again. I have plans. I have stories I want to do with them, but not in the Flash book. Like that's like there's things I want to do, and and like I said earlier, like Justice
Damian
League.
and Flash, right?
Damian and Flash, that'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Overanalyzing everything you've said, I've got it. It's Damian and Flash. That'd
be fun. Damian's fun with any character he interacts with. Yeah, the stuff we have planned for that book, man, it's really fun. I feel like if somebody is, I'm trying to write it in a way that is completely accessible to somebody who's brand new to the DC universe, or if you just want to read a Robin book, like it's all accessible to you. But if you've been reading DC Comics for, years, there's pieces in there. But now, what's really cool now is that, like, so much stuff's available, like if you, not just in trade, it's like, I'm not trying to sell this pitch necessarily, but it's like, with Marvel Unlimited and DC Infinite, right? Like, having both those apps, if there's something you think a character is cool and you want to go read, if you have those apps, you can just go read those books now. I mean, we still buy the trades, but there are times where I'm like right now in the middle of rereading Daredevil. I started reading it with the Frank Miller stuff, and now I'm on the Mark Waid stuff. Oh, and I've been reading it just every day. I sit down and I read a couple issues, and at night, and I've been reading a lot of Daredevil recently. So yeah, now I'm on the Mark Waid stuff, and then with DC stuff, I'm reading like a bunch of stuff. I can't tell you what I'm reading because it'll give away everything I'm working on.
Right.
I almost did this now.
Tell me exactly which issues you're reading.
Yes.
Not researching.
Yeah. Well, because what's cool is on the DC one, you can break it up into you can build your own lists, right? You can build your own groups. Okay. And so I'll go in there and I'll be like, okay, this is all the reference for this book. So I'm working on this book. And so I'll go through and pre-plan. So I'm like, okay, I remember this issue, this issue, this issue, this issue. And you can save them into that group. And so I'll go through and save them all, build them into this little list. And it's not a list, it's like a weird grouping. You have like your favorite groupings, but you can break up your favorites by whatever. So I'll break up into characters or books. So for example, since I'm writing Robin, I have a Robin file on there, and I just save all kinds of different things. But not everything in there is a Robin book. There's times where it's like, okay, so for Ravager, I have to do all this stuff for Ravager. So sometimes that's Teen Titans stuff, that's Deathstroke stuff, that all gets saved into that file. It just depends on what it is. So like, I'm introducing a new character in Robin. We're actually introducing a few characters in Robin. Some of them will be surprises. We're bringing some characters in, and I think they'll surprise people. And we're introducing a bunch of new ones. But the one that we're kind of pushing the most is a character called Flatline. And she is Lord Deathman's sidekick. Like, he has a new sidekick, and it's her. So I had to go back and look at old Lord Deathman stuff from Grant's run, right, and like find stuff in there with Lord Deathman to put with her. So those, like, that stuff where it's like sometimes Batman Inc. stuff is in the Robin file. Anyway, yeah, I read a lot of old comics lately. I read a lot of stuff from, like, and I say old, it's like it's so crazy to having conversations and be like, yeah, old comics, from like 2000.
Right. Well, you think that's bad because I get, especially with the pandemic, I've gotten so weirdly my reading pile has gotten so weird. Like old piles is like a year ago. Oh, I never got to this one. You know, like
Yeah.
that's my old pile right now. I think the oldest thing I have on the desk at the moment. I don't even know. I'm looking at a Guardians of the Galaxy from like 2 years ago. Like,
Oh man, yeah. I have a lot of stuff in here. Like I just got the Curse Words hardcover, and what else I got? I got a bunch of image books that have come in. I got a bunch of Kickstarters that all came in at the same time, oddly. And then I have like a stack of books that are indie books that I was trying to read over the winter break that I never got to. So that's over here. Then I have like a bunch of single issues down here, and there's just like it's stuff everywhere. There's
the problem with comic books
everywhere.
is just so many. It turns into I'll get to that tomorrow. I'll get to that tomorrow. I'll get to that tomorrow, and then you finally sit down. You're like, oh, I should start on this pile, but this came in.
Well, that's what I mean. That's the thing about the digital stuff that gets me is that like then I have like I'm reading these Daredevil books, and it's the Mark Waid's the Daredevil stuff is so good.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, here it is, and I can read like 3 issues in a row, and I can just on my iPad and read them really quickly, and I love that book so much. That also is like it's tough. Sometimes on the weekends I'll sit down and I'll read like a trade or something. I'll go we have a chair in the bedroom that's like kind of away from everything. It's like a nice corner. It's very like mellow. And I'll go in there and I'll sit down and read a whole trade like on a Sunday afternoon or something.
Yeah.
But even though it's one trade a week doing that. So it's like when you're getting a stack of stuff and then it's like we get DC comps and I buy a lot of books. I think I'll cut back a little bit since Christmas, but before because when we have like a little bit of a winter break around Christmas, around then I just bought like stacks of stuff. Like I'm super behind on Immortal Hulk, so I have like a bunch of Immortal Hulk. I have the Immortal Hulk hardcovers over here.
Nice.
Like in November. I'm a little behind on Donnie's.
I think
Venom.
I'm only like 3 behind on Immortal Hulk now. I did like a binge of catching up because like I stopped reading it at 13 when he went to hell. Like the first time he went to hell.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was a great ending. And then I checked back later and I'm like, it's still going. I should probably keep reading this.
Like Gideon Falls is a book that I read the first 2 trades in one night. I just sat down. Gideon Falls is so good, but it's definitely like better as a binge read.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I read it in the first two trades on like one night, and then I fell behind. And I was done. There's like 6 trades, I think. And so I have the 5 of them, but I don't want to start 3 now. I have to reread from the beginning because it was so long ago.
Yeah.
I have to read all of this stuff, but yeah, what else is going on at DC? Let me see. So I got Infinite Frontiers coming out in beginning of March. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens in that. And
I was actually going to ask, like, what do you directly want to promote? Let's go into the direct promotion portion of our show.
Yeah, well, I would say Robin. I think Robin is probably my priority right now. There's other stuff coming up in the year that are later, but I would think Robin is the priority. Infinite Frontiers is crazy. Like, there's some really big stuff that happens in it. Like, I kind of forget some of the bigger moments in it until I saw them, and but it has all these different creative teams on it, everyone kind of pointing their books in different directions on what they want to do and with the bigger stuff that's coming. And then that will spin off into other stuff and really impacts the DCU. Like that book, once it comes out, I think people will really see how much it's going to impact a lot of stuff moving forward in the DCU over the next year.
Yeah. I'm excited. It feels like DC Rebirth. And when DC Rebirth dropped, it was like, oh, okay, this is going to be great. I feel like that with Infinite Frontier.
I mean, I thought a lot about Rebirth, and I've read Rebirth a lot of times. Obviously, working on Flash, like Flash was so connected to Rebirth with the Barry and Wally stuff. It's like it was so in there. That's a book that I read many times. But I also didn't want it to just be Rebirth Part 2.
Right.
I didn't want it to be the same thing. That's part of why we brought in so many different writers, and we had it be where it's like, me and Scott and James write our chapters, but then it's like there's chapters written by all these other different writers like Bendis and Jeffrey Thorne during the Green Lantern one, Tim Sheridan Teen Titans one, and being able to get in there, and like Joelle does the Wonder Girl chapters, and they're all little short like teases, but they're all building to something about how it's like all these characters are starting new chapters in their life. And there's a scene where Wonder Woman and Spectre are talking about it, and it's just like being able to start new chapters in your life can be great, but it can also be really scary, right? It's like how he says like that can be wonder, and she's like, yeah, but there's terror. And I wanted to show that, and that's really what the book is about. Is like everyone is starting these new chapters, but that can mean different things. You know, there's a line at the ending where it's like you can start all these new chapters in your life, but every time you start a new chapter in the book, all it does is get you closer to the ending. Like that's all that's happening, So that's sort of like part of the theme of it that you get to. It's like there's always some kind of dark twist on everything in the background. There's something brewing. And trying to move some of the stuff along to get to the bigger stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I don't know. It was a really interesting book to develop and talk with editorial about a lot over the last few months. The day it went to print, it was like, man, it was crazy. Like I must have read it like so many times, just looking at it, checking it for stuff. Because things like that, you look at Rebirth. Rebirth was never collected in anything else. Like they did a hardcover special later, but whenever it's always collected by itself, right?
Yeah.
Like they did the hardcover that came out.
I think it was all the issue ones that got collected with. It was like
they
just
did
a
it.
big. Yeah.
It is in a giant Rebirth. Do I even have one? I think that's in the garage. that giant. Oh no, I have it. It's right there. Yeah, that giant one. I think it is collected at the beginning, and then it's all the Rebirth issues and number ones and stuff.
Yeah.
But you never know for sure if somebody's going to collect it again. These like one shots, because you go back and look, it's like I don't think Countdown to Infinite Crisis is collected in anything. It might be an OMAC. I think it might be an OMAC project.
Yeah.
But it's like there was also DC Universe Zero. I think that might be collected. Like parts of it are collected in the Final Crisis. There was Brave New World. I don't know what that's collected in. So when you do these specials,
Well,
it's like,
a lot of the holiday stuff doesn't get collected. Like a lot of people like to reference the recent Christmas one, like, oh, the new Flash came in that, and so did Yara, and it's like, well, where do I get it afterwards?
Some of it does get collected sometimes, but not always. So as an example of that is that issue of Superman Batman that I did that was Supergirl and Damian.
Yeah.
That has been collected once, and it took so long. Here's wild that so it didn't get collected because for whatever reason they never did a collection. Like they would do collections around it. It's all weird. So like because the arcs that are around it are longer. So it would be like, oh, someone's over here doing a 6-issue arc, doing a 5-issue arc, or an 8-issue arc, or whatever. They would literally collect around it. It just never got into it. Because they were collecting them by arc. They weren't collecting them by like, here's a bunch of little one-offs.
Yeah.
The first time it got collected, and I was really happy with this, it got collected, I think it's the 75th anniversary of Robin. They did those hardcovers,
Yeah.
You know how they do those big hardcovers of like, I have a bunch of them right here. So it's like 75 years of Green Lantern, 75 years of Wonder Woman. I think I went for the Joker at 75 years.
I collected all the covers for all those runs.
Yeah.
That was expensive.
Yeah. But they would do these big hardcovers that collect like 10 stories in them that are just stuff. So it got collected in one of those.
Oh.
Which was cool because I was like, oh, it's finally collected, and it's collected in a book that's celebrating. So the way they do it is, so for the Robin one, the way they did it was each Robin got one, right? So it was like, what's the best, Tim Drake story? What's the best Jason Todd story? What's the best, Dick Grayson story? And then for Damian, what's the best Damian story? They used that issue.
No kidding.
That was the one that got put in there. So
That's
I was
nice.
Like, all right, made it. I actually found that out. I found that out because of a royalty check. Like we get our royalties, and it's a breakdown of everything, And so I got this royalty check, and it comes with a breakdown of like what this money actually is, and in there it was like Robin 80th or 75th. Sorry, Robin 75th, and I was like, what's that?
Right.
Where was that at? And I had it. I just never opened it. Ran over, pulled it out of a box, ripped it open. I'm like, yes! I won. I was able to find it in something. But yeah, with Infinite Frontier, I mean, it definitely sets off a lot of stuff that's going to be happening in the DCU over the next year. And the stuff the stuff that James is doing with the Batman books are very impacted by the stuff that happens in the Batman chapter, because that's what Joker spins out of the stuff from that. And everything you'll be building in the Batman books over the next few months, almost not a whole year, but basically this year in 2021 are all going to reference the moments from Infinite Frontier. And same thing with Flash, like obviously the stuff that it's gonna be happening in the Flash book. Some stuff you won't see for a little bit, like it'll take a couple months. Part of it is we didn't want to ruin it. Like
right,
yeah.
That's a trick with some of this stuff is you don't want to have a thing where an event happens in something, but you already know about it because of the solicits like 3 months out.
Right, yeah.
It's like if I'm like, imagine if a character comes back from the dead and you find out because they're on the cover of like issue 4 or something.
Yeah, that sucks.
And they're on the cover and you're like, wait, when did that character come back from the dead? I mean, there's a weird math to that because you might be like, when did that character come back from the dead? Oh, in this book it's coming out this week. Like that can kind of work, but it sucks if the balance is all off and stuff. And so there's certain things that we didn't want to ruin.
Totally.
So it's like, again, there are certain solicits that are kind of clues on the things that are happening. Not everything is giving everything away,
Right.
but there's a lot of cool stuff with it. I mean, it's definitely something that we're trying to just kind of say, like, this is what the DCU is, answer a few questions, but not answer everything. Because I think
Right.
once
We
you get
want
everything
mystery.
answered, yeah, you want mystery. Well, so do I. Like, I love this. I think that, like, one of the things that DC does really well, or did really well, particularly like the build up to Countdown to Infinite Crisis and things like that, you want to be able to build up these mysteries in the DCU, and that's what the special does, and that's what all of the books kind of leading forward are all about, planning all these mysteries on the table that you can eventually, we could pick up. Some of them we could pick up in the summer. But here's the other thing: we didn't want to have things where it's like, here's a mystery, we'll pick that up a year from now,
Right.
like that. That's
If we
something
remember.
I think that's my actual
Yeah.
biggest complaint with the future state situation.
Uh-huh,
Everything is
uh-huh.
just happening right now at the exact same time. There's no real mystery other than where does it fit together.
Right.
So it's just kinda
which
like-
isn't
it's-
really an intentional mystery.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's just kind of like, instead of there being like a buildup or we're getting to these points or we're getting like, it was like the magistrate situation is being revealed in Batman Superman, but it's already happening in all the other books. So
Yeah. Like we
it's
know
just
how
all
it
coming
ends.
at one time. So
Yeah.
there is no real mystery to it. And I think that's my only biggest complaint with Future State. And I get why it exists and what you guys are doing. I'm not
Yeah.
arguing against that. It's just based on what you just said with Infinite Frontier, having a mystery and having things to be hyped for and be building towards is a lot more exciting than just you guys going, and here's everything at once. Just read in this order.
Yeah, I think there is a mystery to some of that stuff that will become more obvious the more we get into the year, because you will get like, how do I get here in some places, but then there's also a why doesn't that happen in some, right?
Okay.
Like there's a line at the beginning of Infinite Frontier where the Spectre, Wonder Woman basically straight out says, like, she saw a future state, so she saw it, and the Spectre is, she's like concerned, and the Spectre is like, those are possibilities that may or may not happen. It has been undecided. And he goes in this like little mini speech about it, and then you'll see in the books, you'll see some of that stuff might happen, some of it might not, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be able to see, and what are the pieces that get us there? And I think
Right.
some of the stuff gets answered fairly quickly, and some stuff it might take a minute. Like that stuff, but this year, you're going to get most of those answers this year.
That's
as to
cool.
Why some things happen and why some things don't. Some stuff are word teased and drops for fun, and you'll be able to pick up some of that stuff. But yeah, I guess you'll see, like, not everything in Future State was definitive or definite,
Right.
And there's a reason why in places you'll start to see some of that stuff unravel over the next year. But yeah, that was one of the things with Infinite Frontier, was it was like, there's definitely a few different mysteries and a few status quo changes and a few things get picked up, and then we're not going to pick them up again until I would say the summer, and then some later than that, and but within this year, that was the goal, was to be like, within this year, to have a lot of the stuff answered, but then not in a way that is like, and here's the end of the story, roll credits.
You can drop off now. You can go over to Marvel. Like, no.
Yeah.
That's not a selling pitch.
I read a
Sal.
lot of Marvel.
I know.
What did you say, Benny?
I was like, I don't think they want to sell that pitch, Sal.
Yeah, no.
Like,
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you don't want to
go
be
read
like,
Marvel now. It's great. Have you
Like, we
guys heard
set
of
up all
that
the-
Miles guy?
well, you don't want to set up like the mysteries of the DC universe and be like, and they're all answered. So you're pretty much good.
Yeah, no, there's
see you
stuff
later.
that's building out for a while. I mean, like my Damien plans, I had pitched something with, so this whole thing, when I was asked to do Robin last April, when we started talking about it, I had this pitch that I had wanted to do at DC forever. Like, I had pitched it a few times, and everyone, like, even when I first started really working on DC stuff, I pitched this idea I had for a story that was like a bigger DC story, and it was weird. It was like I was pitching a story with no characters in it. This sounds really complicated, but so it's like I'm pitching an idea for something that could happen in the DCU and how characters would react to it depending on which characters were involved.
Yeah.
And so it changed shape. Once the characters were involved, once we knew who it was. But it was like an idea of like, what would happen if this happened?
Right.
Like, if this kind of thing, what are the points of view? Like, how would it change? And so it was more of like a working exercise with the editors, almost 5 years ago, just like talking about this idea and bouncing around of like, well, then who are those characters involved in that kind of story? And last year when we started talking about Robin, I was like, oh, I have this story idea I've talked about before in the past, and I think if Robin was involved in that story, it would mean these characters are involved in that story,
Right.
and then what does that mean for the DCU? And
Right.
once we started talking about that, then it became like, oh, okay, well, that's like part of Damien's story now going forward, and that's something that isn't going to really start like the seeds are going to be there throughout this year, but that's something that like we won't necessarily get to until closer. Like I'm going to do the first arc with Lazarus Island in the tournament. That's the whole first arc that I'm doing, and it's going to be a longer arc, but there are seeds in there that will lead up to something else, and then there's another book I'm writing that will also connect to that, and they'll eventually converge into a bigger story.
Cool.
So, but like those pieces will not really start coming together until we get past some Infinite Frontier stuff. Like it's interesting, you know, like a lot of us are planning this stuff out, and you know, there's different stories that people are doing, and we're just trying to find ways to just kind of, I don't know, keep the ball rolling and just have fun.
Yeah,
like, that's it. Just have fun with these characters and make fun books. I mean, I think it's going to surprise people in places how these things are definitely like fun right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun stuff coming, and just trying to like take these characters in a different direction than we've seen before, and you know, I don't know, find different ways of challenging them, and just again, trying to have fun with them and stuff. It's been really interesting talking editorial and seeing the different points of view, and then talking to other creators and what they want to do with the characters, and getting to hear people talk about this stuff and get really enthusiastic about what they're working on. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you're having fun with it.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna
comics,
put us to a close here.
Exactly.
Yeah, comics. Wow, we're like comedians. It all came back around. You're really
It
good
always
at
comes
this.
back around. Yeah.
So you want to basically we want. Yeah, I can talk. It's like it's my job. Anyway.
Yeah.
Infinite Frontier officially drops. What is the actual date? Because I'm just
March
reading
2nd?
this.
It's March 2nd.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
March
I knew
2nd.
Future State was closing up over the next 2 weeks, so
Yeah.
it's going to be right after that. March
Yeah.
2nd, and then Robin, your book does that start March 2nd or the week after?
No,
Or-
it comes out. No, that comes out in April. I think it's April 27th. I think that's
Okay, so you
it's
get a
the
little
end
build
of
up and other
April.
things.
Yeah, it's end of April. But what we're doing is there's 2 preludes in Batman 106 and Detective 134. There's
cool.
a
Okay.
prelude, like backups of like essentially Damian going to Talia after everything that happened to him, and him going to Talia and talking to him about his future. But Talia is also tied up in her own stuff, because if you saw at the end of Death Metal, she's part of that group that's like monitoring the multiverse and seeing like what's going on with that. So she has
Interesting
her own.
choice.
Yeah, that was my pick. I picked Talia. Like we went into it. We went into this whole thing. Man, it was funny. That was like, there was definitely a debate on who those characters were going to be. But we knew it was going to be 3 heroes and 3 villains, and it kept getting bigger and then smaller. People kept adding characters, but I was always like, there has to be balance. Like Batman, Superman are there, and then Flash or Wally there. But those 6, you know, it kept getting bigger. I'm like, no, but it has to be a balance. It can't be like, so if you add a hero, you got to add a villain, and then it was like, we don't want to add another villain. And I'm like, well, I guess we're doing this. And so that was like, it was funny, like it was me, Scott, and James, and then some of the editors. And I could tell at one point James was just like, I'm out of this conversation. Like, I got Batman scripts to write. I got to do this. Like, I'm out of it. And then me and Scott like going back and forth. And then, because, you know, we can't just like pick it. Like, we got to go to editorial. So it was like talking to editors and being like, what about these people? Okay, well, this makes sense. This is cool. Because like Vandal Savage is in that group, but Vandal Savage died in Justice League number 1.
Yeah, so big reveal.
So it's like, that's automatically a clue that some people who have recently died have come back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, reality has been rewritten, but what does that exactly mean? That's a clue right there.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like trying to figure this out in these conversations, and then and I was like, you gotta have Talia in there. Like, she represents a part of DCU to me. So, and I think she's a character we can like elevate. So we should get Talia in there. So that was my big contribution to the group. I mean, we definitely went back and forth on it a lot, because it was like, well, if you get Lex there. Oh, it was funny because it was Lex was in it, and then Martian Manhunter wasn't at one point, and then it was like, no, this is, if Lex is there in this group, the counterbalance has to be Martian Manhunter because of their relationship in Justice League. So we were going forth about that group. But anyway, so yeah, Talia plays a lot of roles in the DCU over the next year, and so I wanted to start off there. So that's part of it, is we do these 2 backups that are about Damian and Talia, and then that gives you like a driving force to go into the book, and there's like a cool twist thrown in there that I've somehow so far managed to keep secret.
All right.
Right on the edge. I feel like it's gonna get leaked, but I'm trying so hard to keep it as long as I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's cool stuff with that. So those are the main 2, and then obviously, you know, Future State Gotham will come out in May. And that takes all the Future State Gotham plots, and we start combining them, and you start to see that future moving forward. It's about Jason Todd getting charged with having to hunt down the next Batman, and why he's charged with that, where they left it alone before. It spins out of the end of the two-part Red Hood storyline that I did in Future State. It spins out of that. And then there's Infinite Frontier, and then there's stuff coming this summer and stuff coming in the fall. Like, there's all kinds of cool stuff coming that I'm working on with DC.
Sweet.
Also, I'm excited, and I'm really liking I forgot you did the Red Hood one. I'm really digging that idea for the Red Hood there. You also blew out everyone's theories that Peacekeeper was going to be Peacekeeper 01. Everyone's like, it's Red Hood. And I'm like, he's got a book. I doubt it's going to be Red Hood.
No. You'll find out who Peacekeeper 1 is fairly quickly. I think you find out in beginning of March.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Find out who it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it might
right,
surprise
awesome.
people. I don't know. It's built into the story. It's interesting.
Good.
But, all right, well, let's go ahead and wrap up here. I've got a wife who is hitting me up because she wants to go watch WandaVision.
Yeah, we're doing that at 1. That's what we're gonna do when both my kids take their naps. We're gonna go do that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, my
So
wife
thank
and I
you
are
so much for being
lunch.
on here today, Josh.
no
Everyone, definitely go check out Infinite Frontier. Check out the Robin book when it comes dropping out. Check out everything going on at Future State. It's all been a huge amount of fun for me, and I'm super excited for the Infinite Frontier book. That's pretty much it. All these interviews, I never know how to end them because we don't do our normal send
Comic books.
Exactly.
comic books. That will now be the official send off, Sal.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the end of the show. Just wait for an awkward pause, and then 3 comic books. We're ready to go.
Yeah.